Hey guys, it's Steve here with part 3 and what should be the final part to our modern house tutorial series in Blender. In this part I'm going to be adding on the materials and getting it ready to render. Like I said in the beginning of part 1, I won't be covering how to do the background trees and the grass and weeds in front here, but if you'd like to do that yourself, I have a tutorial here on creating realistic trees and a tutorial here on creating realistic nature. Also, if you didn't want to spend all the time creating that yourself, you could pick up the $10 tree asset pack or the $10 realistic nature asset pack. Both are available on the Blender market, and like I said, that's just 10 bucks. Okay, so on to the materials for this. I think we should start with the porch, as that is what we started modeling. So let's just start with the materials on that. And I'm just going to, first I'm going to switch over to GPU. So GPU is something that you won't always have depending on your computer. If you don't have a great computer pretty much, then you'll want to render on CPU. But if you have a nice CPU and it has to be NVIDIA, I guess there are some ATI now supported as well, but most of the time NVIDIA is the way to go. Go ahead and enable that for faster rendering. All right, so switching over to rendered view here, I can have my scene up, and I'm going to work on the wood material. Okay, so first off, I have some bump that I want to add to this, kind of like some grooves that just kind of give it a modern look and kind of split it up a little bit. So to add that in, I'm just going to duplicate this texture here, and you know what, I might use CPU because I'm rendering on just one GPU, it's my monitor and rendering, so it kind of slows down everything else. Okay, so I'm going to open up this bump texture I created. You'll have a link in the description for it. And this is going to be vector bump. Plug it into the height of that and hook it up to the normal. And you can see that adds those cool grooves going through it. So it's pretty neat. I just increase the distance a little bit. And that is about all you have to do for that. So just adds that extra kind of groove, chainsaw, not chainsaw, but like table sawed groove in the wood, which looks cool, I think. All right, so now let's kind of adjust the colors here. I'm going to go color hue saturation. Let's give it a little bit more of a greenish, bluish hue by clicking up once, and then I'm going to take the value down quite a bit so it looks more black. That's looking good, I think. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm just going to add some glossiness to this, because glossy is pretty much on every single material you'll ever find, slightly to some extent. So go ahead and add in a shader. Mix shader. So we're going to start with the mix and mix some shader glossy. So just Shift A and adding in, connect it to the bottom, and you can see we have those sharp reflections there that aren't necessarily what we want, but we'll work with it. Go ahead and drop in the normal, where you can see it gives the grooves there. And for this normal, I'm also going to use a little bit of wood here. So I'm going to use a color mix RGB. Drop it in there, change it to multiply, and just multiply this color on a bit. Not too much, this kind of will control the amount of that, so we can turn it down a little bit. But if you zoom in here, you can see we have some of the wood grain, which just looks way more realistic. So that's looking better, and all that's left to do is kind of adjust the amount of glossiness and the roughness a little bit. I'm going to give the roughness a little bit more of a flat by going 0.25. I'm seeing a little bit of an issue here. I just want to pull that forward a little bit. Once you start adding materials, you might notice some areas that need a little more tweaking than others, but no big deal. And then the last thing is to control the amount. I'm going to use an IOR value from the Fresnel node, or Fresnel node, I think it is. Yes, Fresnel. I've been corrected on that now. I remember that now. So Fresnel node, connect that into the mix shader, and you can see that only at certain angles now will the material get glossy, which is way more realistic. So that will serve as our wood material, I believe. That should do it nicely. We might want to crank up the amount of bump a little bit, but that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's move on to our wooden planks here. Now, one thing I want to mention before I get too far into this is you want to kind of avoid the repeating textures. Now, you might think, well, we just used an array modifier. Of course, there's going to be a whole bunch of repeating textures, but there's a trick to kind of fixing that now. And because we used the texture that was the planks, what you can do now is come through and grab just a whole bunch of random ones, hitting L, and just kind of hovering along the outside. It'll select the closest one in edit mode here. We could do some over here as well. And then in here, I'm going to switch it over to our wood planks material where we unwrapped it. You can see that I can move some of these. I might just select the front face. And it would be easier if you click that option to not seeing through the mesh. Select some of these front faces. And I'm just going to move them to a different plank. So moving them up and down and also right over a different plank. If you switch to textured view here, you can see that we're breaking up the repeating factor, which gives it a way more realistic look. So that's awesome. And super easy to do when you have this kind of material that you're using. So I'm just going to grab a few more of these. I already had that one, so I don't need to select that one, but maybe that one. Grab them and move them to another plank, and then also move them up a bit. In textured view, you can see it's removing that repeating look. I'll grab that one, move it over here. Grab that one, that's already moved. Grab that one, move it over here. So really quick and easy, and just kind of correcting the repeatingness you get. And you can do that as much as you need. If you ever see something that's looking annoying, too repetitive, mix it up a little bit. Okay, so now that that is done, the same kind of thing can apply on different materials. Even if you don't have the plank, like we have in this example here, what you can do is grab a face, switch back to our this material now, texture, and just kind of drag along so the repeatingness is at a different section, and that will help hide repeating textures as well. So a few tips there for avoiding repeating textures. Same thing over here. We didn't apply this yet though, so we can do that now. Apply, and then grab some of these different faces, like so. And then we have to switch back to that material, of course, and then just move them around. So now that you know how this is done, I feel like I don't need to show you everything involved in it. I'll just move this to a different one there. And you guys can go ahead and do this as much as you want, like I said, to avoid repeating textures. Okay. So onto this material now. So this material I want to be kind of more of a redwood, contrasty, as you see in my final render, looking like wood. So to do this, I'm going to add in, again, a hue saturation value. So color, hue saturation, but also I'm going to use an RGB curves. So color, RGB curves right there. Now I'm going to go rendered. And you know what? I think I might also need to drop in an RGB curves on our planks there. Just drag it, drop it right in there, and make the color a little darker on that too. Not super dark, but a decent amount of dark. Maybe make the hue 5.5. Okay. So yeah, for our wood here now, I'm going to take the hue down to be more of a 0.44 maybe, to give it kind of that that pinky color. I'm going to give it a little bit more saturation, maybe more at 4.5, and then a little bit more saturation, so 0.1. And you can see that's giving it a nice kind of redwood look. And then over here, I can kind of make it a little brighter. And already, I think that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Maybe slightly too pinky. Maybe make it a 4-6. But that's looking pretty decent. So then basically the same material applies for the glossiness. So it's going to be a shader, a mix shader, where we have it. Perfect. And then a glossy. Plug the glossy in the bottom. Too much glossy. And no bump. So I'm going to drop in a vector bump node. I'll sometimes add in a color ramp, converter color ramp, to kind of tweak the height map a little bit here. And another thing that really helps when you're working on node trees, they call them, when you're working on node material, is using the Node Wrangler add-on. This add-on saves so much time and is so easy to use. Well, easy to use, more like making life easy for you. So Control Shift and left clicking now switches that to its own material, so we can kind of see exactly what that material looks like. I'm just going to pull the blacks in a little bit, and that's about all you have to do. So drop that into the height, Control Shift back onto your mix shader so we have it connected up right. And you can see that adds a nice bit of realism once we connect that to the glossy and to the diffuse. Just too strong, obviously. Bring it down to about a 0.2. And that looks pretty good. I'm also going to drop in the typical IOR value to control the amount of glossiness. So let me see here. Fresnel, IOR. Also, we can connect the bump to the Fresnel. And that just gives it the realism we're looking for. All right, so it's looking good from the outside here, but what is it looking like on the inside? Well, let's first make these sheets of glass, well, glass, so we can actually see through them. Okay, so for the glass material, I'm kind of borrowing a material that Andrew Price shared on Twitter. It was very similar to what I had, but I liked a few things about it, so I've kind of tweaked it to be more like his. First, I want to separate my glass, though, so I just selected both those faces. I'm just going to hit P, separate by selection. So we have our glass right there. Now I'm going to give it a new material, and basically we do not need a diffuse material. We're going to have a glossy, so shader, glossy, and we're going to give it about a 0.2. I guess it already is 0.2, so we'll go there, and then give it a sharp glossy, and then we're dropping in another shader, mix shader, where we have it right there, connected in the bottom socket there, and then connect that to the surface. Now I'm going to be using two mix shaders. One is going to be mixing with a transparent, well, both of them are mixing with transparent. So the top one here is just going to be transparent, drop it in right there, and the factor of this one is going to be an IOR again. So we're going to use the Fresnel. Let me see here. Fresnel right there. Thank you. I'm going to make it a little bit higher value, like a 0.55 or 0.65 for a thicker glass, as this might be if you imagine. And then I'm going to have another transparent node, so just Shift D down to here as the bottom one. Now for the factor of this, it's going to be a light path node. And we're going to do a little bit of math here. Don't worry, it's not like schoolwork math. It's way easier than that. It's just dropping the shadow ray and the diffuse ray into an add node. And then we'll duplicate that one more time. And then adding this one to the top socket, we'll also add the glossy. Now, I'm not going to go into too much as to how this works, but basically it's taking the shadow, diffuse rays, and glossy rays and making it transparent to light. Okay, so that's about it. Just so light can pass through it like glass would. If you turn on the preview here, you can see it looks pretty much like glass. And now if I go rendered, let me quick save our project file here, go rendered, you can see we have it as glass. At certain angles, you will see, certain angles you will see more reflections and stuff coming in here as the glass really works. But yeah, that's going to do it for that glass material. All right, so moving on, let's get some more of these materials done. So first of all, the roof plane here. I want this to be, I'm just going to scale on the X a little bit to fix that up a little bit. I want the roof to be transparent, so light passes through. Like I said earlier in a previous part, it is really kind of a clear plastic. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just confirming that I know what the material is. Yep, it's just a translucent node. So we're going to go new, change the diffuse here, well you could do it over here too, to translucent. And this is just going to let the light pass right through it. So technically this doesn't even have to be here, but it will look white if you look at it from a different angle, and that's kind of how we want it to look. But from our angle, we don't have to give it any more detail than that. It's basically just going to let light hit it, and it kind of pass through it. Good. Now you can see right in here, we have a problem because we didn't add the material to our rafters. So without further ado, let's do the rafters. So let's select the rafter model there and hit Control I and hide everything else with H. Let's tab onto our last one back here, and well, let's just go U reset like we did before. Now I'm going to open up another image. I have a few different boards here. Actually, I'm just going to reuse one of these. I'll use this one for the floor inside. So these don't really matter. They can be the same that we used already. I'll just make it the same planks here. And I'll make the material slightly different though, so it's not as red. So switching to textured view again, I'm going to select these faces. Wait a minute, how come I'm not seeing? I guess I have to add the material. That's right. New material. Shift add in that texture. Right there. Texture, image texture. Connect it up, and then just give this the planks. Very cool. Alright, now I'm going to scale them along the y-axis here. And you can see that it looks pretty good across the whole thing. This face here, let me go solid so I can grab it. This face here needs to be, well, scaled first of all. Thought I had them all selected, I guess I didn't. Go to textured view and hit period to kind of zoom in on that board there. Looks good. You don't have to worry about the log ends or anything right now. Not that big of a deal. But I'm just going to get these all lined up along the same. So scale them along the Y, scale them along the Y to 0. And then I can grab them both. Just hit A. Yeah, I'll select everything and scale it all down to fit into one of these planks. All right. It looks very good. So there we have the texture for that. Now the material, like I said, is going to be very similar to the other one, except I'm not going to do the color adjustments. So all I have to do is grab that material here, click that button there, and not just basically skip both those nodes because I don't need them. And now when I render though, they'll have the glossy realistic wood material that we created there. So very cool. And I can option H to unhide, and you can see now that it's looking better where you can see it. The gap between these two is still too much in my opinion though. So let me grab that, move it up a little bit, and then in the modifier tab here, make that a much smaller. Whoa, well it has to be more than that. Just like a 1.05. Very good. Rendered. And that's looking pretty good. We could hide that completely if we wanted to. Maybe I will in a bit. But it's looking pretty good. I can pull my camera down a little bit and kind of rotate it up a little bit, just so I'm not too high in perspective to my my house. And let's keep going on. So let's do the floor material. I'm just going to jump inside our house here, grab that floor, tab into edit mode, hit U, and just unwrap it. So it's just a perfect sphere. Now I'm going to open up our seamless floor texture there. And go rendered. Well, let's go textured. Add a new material to that plane. Shift add the texture like I've done before. Grabbing those new planks that we just opened up. That is not the right one. This one is the right one. Very cool. And now I'm just going to scale this till we have about the right size boards for our scene. Something like that is actually pretty good. And I also want to scale it along the Y a little bit, so it's not stretched. Okay, looking pretty nice. Yes, I like it. I'm just kind of checking the corners to make sure they lined up okay, and it looks pretty good. Very good. Now let's just do the same material. I believe there's nothing too fancy about this one. I think it's pretty similar to the other wood materials. I'm just checking to be sure. But yeah, it's just a typical floor material with the glossy. The glossy is what really makes it, and a little bit of bump. So vector bump, drag that into the height, and then shift A shader mix. Where do we have it? Right there. And then shader glossy. Just gonna give ourselves a little bit of room here. Drop the glossy into the bottom, drop the normal into the normal of that one, and our factor, which is gonna be the Fresnel shader. So drag it into there as well. Let's make it a little bit shinier this time by dropping the IOR value a bit. And now we just need to reduce the bump amount. And, well, I think we pretty much have our floor. We can drop a color hue saturation value to kind of tweak this if it's too saturated or whatnot. But I believe it should be not too bad. Maybe make it slightly brighter by cranking the value up there a little bit. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. The glossiness could be a little bit glossier, actually. Well, I guess it's pretty glossy if you look at it over there. Yeah, so not too bad. I might just want to scale the overall size of that wood up a little bit more. And then let's make the roughness a little bit less harsh. Check it one more time. Go to rendered view. And yeah, that looks pretty good. We have kind of a cool looking rustic wood floor. Maybe make the IOR value even a little smaller. Alright, so as long as we're here, let's do our chairs. So the chairs are cool. I don't mean to brag, but they're cool. Because what I did for these is I kind of used a wicker basket. Well, not kind of. I did. I used a wicker basket material. And I basically mixed a transparent shader with it to kind of give the holes through it, that give it the kind of see-through, slightly see-through look. So instead of explaining it anymore, I'll just show you how it's done. And I'm going to start off by adding in the texture. Image texture right here. Yes, there we go. Dropping it into the diffuse and opening up that material. So the material, again, is included in the description, but it's a wicker basket material. I need to unwrap this now. Just the inside. So I'm just going to go U, unwrap. You can see we have a rough unwrap job there. If I switch to textured view, though, you can see what it's looking like. Not too bad. Scale it along the X a little bit. And maybe slightly smaller. And that looks pretty good. So to kind of make this material now, I take a color ramp, convert a color ramp, drop it into the factor, and this is going to be the factor of a mix shader controlling the transparency. So let's just do that first and foremost. So it's going to be a shader, mix shader. Man, I'm having a hard time finding that mix shader today. And a transparent shader. So with both of these here connected to the bottom, this is going to be our factor. I'm going to basically create an alpha map with this color ramp. You can see right now it's working, but it's too much see-throughness. So I'm going to crank that up a bit. but now it's like no see-through. So if I go Control Shift, click on that, we can kind of control what is see-through and what is not. So this is good, but it's kind of the opposite of what I want. It's not it's see-through, but it's too much see-through. Like, I want the gaps between the wicker to be see-through, if you get what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert it. Color, invert. Drop it right in there. And then check what that looks like. And it's looking pretty good. I just need to tone it back even finer. So we just have little holes. All right, it's looking better. Tone it back even more. And then for the final touch, to control the amount of it, I drop in a math node, convert it math, and change it to multiply. So this I can crank up pretty high, and if I check what that's looking like, you just have these little dots and areas that are transparent on your wicker basket material. All right, so that looks it looks pretty nice. I'm going to just drop in a hue saturation node for some texture tweaking here. Take the value down a little bit, maybe. Just kind of zooming around now and seeing what it looks like from the back. Let me see here. Well, I think it looks pretty nice. So it doesn't really need to be tweaked too much, and then we can just drop in our typical glossy node and bump node. So vector bump. I'm just going to use the height map data from this without really tweaking it much because it's just going to be slight. And then I'm going to drop in our shader glossy. One more time for the mix node. Connect the glossy to the bottom, connect the bump to the bump of both the glossy and the diffuse. Now we're going to turn the bump way down, and I also thought this looked a little bit better inverted. And then for the factor, again, it's going to be the Fresnel shader with the bump connected to it, and then controlling the factor, the mix node for the glossy. And you can see we have this as our final result, and I think it looks pretty good. So now let's just add that that rim material, which is just a very simple. I'm going to make a new material here, a very simple diffuse texture that's kind of a darker green. I think I actually went with, and a little bit of glossy. So a shader, mix shader. I'm just hitting Shift A and adding in shaders. So if that's it's not nearly as confusing as maybe it looks. Just making sure you guys are keeping up. We can kind of see what it's looking like over here. I'm just going to drop in the Fresnel and IOR value to make that look more realistic, and assign that to our poles. So over here, I'm going to hit L and try and select these. There we go. And this one over here. Just pretty much hammering L until it registers. Until I get my cursor in the right spot to really find it. There we go. Perfect. And assign it. You can even turn the viewport color to be a little darker just to make sure that you have the material as the right one. And then we have to assign it. Okay. The viewport color won't really show up though in matcap mode like we are right now. Alright, so if I go rendered, you can see what that's looking like, and it's pretty good. Maybe make that a little bit brighter and a little less green. Okay, so that will work. And we can share this material with the other ones here. So actually, because I had to unwrap that and these weren't unwrapped, you'd be better off just deleting these chairs. Making sure nothing back there is selected, yeah. Deleting those chairs and duplicating this one. So go top view, hit 5 and hit Z so you can see through. Just Shift D and rotate them around. Pretty simple. And you know what I might also do is add another one of these chairs just kind of over in the corner here, barely visible, but it will add a little bit more realism when you're seeing through over here and just seeing a little bit more of something. Okay, so this chair is looking pretty decent. Maybe the material is a little too see-through on this. You can always crank that back if you want, or turn down the amount of multiply. But I think that's looking pretty good. Alright, so let's move on to some more materials. First off, the oven here. Let's give this kind of a, well, just a basic diffuse, kind of a dark green glossy, similar to the pipe really that I created earlier. And then it's going to have the same old glossy. It doesn't have to be super good, realistic, because, I mean, we want it to be realistic but not super detailed is what I'm trying to say, is because it's not really the focal point and you don't see it too well, that as long as there's a little bit of glossiness and a color to it from a distance, it will look beautiful. So we'll just, whoops, I'm trying to get the Fresnel node up there. Very good. I was talking about glossy and I was adding glossy. Alright, so with that assigned, we have that. A little dark. So let's like brighten that up a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more material here. This one is going to be just pretty much darkness. So now I'm going to hit 5 to kind of zoom in here a little bit. And I want to grab these faces. This is where the door of this little cook stove is. And I'm going to assign this material to it. So all I did is assign it, tab out of edit mode, and you can see we have that black square. Now, I might need to, let me see. Yeah, I want to put this one back. It's a little too big. Okay, that looks better. Now I do need to add a little bit of glossy to this material too, just to make it look, like a window. So actually, I might just give this the glass material we created, and let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's perfect. So all you have to do is give that a glass material. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I don't think this chair is going to be visible there. I thought it would maybe, but I'm feeling now like back here might be a better option. You don't really want it to be like right in the middle of nowhere, so we'll just kind of put it up against the wall. Adds a little bit more extra detail that you kind of see in the background there. So next up, let's kind of see what we have and what we don't have when we go rendered. Okay. First up, these planks up on top here are not materialized. So I'm just going to give this the same material that we did before here. We'll just go with these wooden planks here. Perfect. And hit that button too so we can adjust them if we want. And then I need to adjust the scale of them, the material here, to match like we've done a few times now. So scale along the Y, switch into textured view to make sure we're getting that right, and then scaling them down. Yep. Except some of these need to be flipped, like this one. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, scale it along the X, like so, and then scale it along the Y. And that essentially flipped it. Perfect. Doesn't look too bad. And then if I want to give this a little bit of its own variation, I would just connect that up there, connect that up there, and then give it a little less hue than the other one. Leave that at 5, but we'll leave it a little bit more saturated. Okay, so now you can see we have that. Looking pretty nice. You kind of have like an afternoon sun coming into our house right now, and it's looking pretty good. The last few things that need materials still is, first of all, on our walls here, let me just select that, Control-I, hide. Whoops, I did not have it selected. That's how you know. That's how you know. So Control-I, hide. The outsides of these are actually kind of black looking, like it's painted black. So what I'm going to do is, I'll just get that out of the way there. How long has that been there? Okay, I'm going to give it kind of a black diffuse material just behind these boards, because that is basically what it is. So these here as well, coming around here, give it the black material. And then, oh, I missed the one material, the wall section. Wall section coming through here. There's a thin wall section that I never did. So I'll quick do that right now. So like I said, you can be changing it. Whoops, I want to click that now so I can get those. Yeah. You can be changing your house all the way to the very end. Don't worry about ever going back and making tweaks, because I was doing it constantly. Just assigning that black material to the outside of those white walls. Alright, so Option H and rendered. Yes, it's looking very good. Perfect. We need a little bit more light inside our house. So what I'm going to do is add in a lamp inside of this kind of chandelier we have here. So I'm going to go Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I'm going to go Shift A, add in a lamp. Right. Well, no, it's going to be a point. So point lamp, same thing, you know. It's a lamp. Now another thing that I had added to the scene is some nature. Like I said at the beginning of the video, you can get the nature asset pack. It comes with some flowers and bushes and stuff that looked really cool when I'd kind of add them around inside the scene a bit. Just kind of in pots and pans and whatever, you know. Adding a little bit of that color like I did on the table in my final render for that flower. Just kind of add a nice bit of realism and hominess. Not exactly the word I was looking for, but you know what I mean. It kind of added to the scene a little bit and made it look a little better. So yeah, you can do as much of that as well as you'd like. Okay, so back to the lamp. I got a little sidetracked there talking about adding nature inside your house, but yeah, back to the lamp. This is going to be about a strength of 50. I'm going to give it kind of a warmish like a what kind of lamp am I looking for? Just a warmish lamp. And then the size is going to be pretty small. 0.5, I think. We might have to experiment with that a little bit. Now, before we can do anything else, we need to add a material to this. And it's just going to be semi-transparent, so it lets some of that light out. So I'm just going to drop in a mix shader. There's that pesky mix shader that I can't ever find. And the transparent shader. Drop it in there. And now when I go rendered, we have the lamp. You can kind of give the lamp its own slightly yellow, darker color. Whatever works well for your scene. And I feel like the intensity of that bulb needs to be increased a little bit. So where do I have it here? Right here. First, the size of the bounces on that, little smaller. We want it to be maybe a 0.05. And then the strength of this, make it all the way bright. Let's make it like a 65. It'll just depend on your scene. You can tweak the lamp intensities. Okay, so switching kind of to camera view here. You can see that looks pretty good. Maybe too bright now. Drop it back to 2.55, and that's looking pretty good. This whole lamp might be a little big. Scale it a little bit, and then you might have to make sure that it's still reaching to the sky. All right. Trying to think. A few things that you might want to change colors for still, just to add to the scene. These bowls over here. Maybe give them a darker kind of wood color. Or even, if you wanted to, you could just unwrap them real quick and give them the wicker basket material. Maybe it could be wicker baskets over there. See what that looks like. Not too bad. So I'm cutting a few corners here, guys, just to show you the process, but keep it quick. You guys could spend as much time on individual materials and stuff as you'd like. I'm dropping a glossy in here. Mix. Where do we have that? Mix shader right there. Right pretty much in the dead center. I think that's why I have a hard time finding it. Alright, and then we'll just drop the Fresnel shader on that as well. And give those bowls kind of a cool shader. We'll name this bowls. So I can kind of copy that over to some of the other bowls up here as well. Or plates even. All right, maybe give these bowls a kind of a darker material. Yeah. And I'm just gonna leave those flat. Or you know what? Just give it the bowl material. Check that box there, and then make the diffuse kind of a darker, slightly orange hued maybe. We'll see what that looks like. Oh, one more thing. The faucet here. Let's give that kind of a glossy glass-like material, I guess. So I'm gonna just give that a new material, assign it to that. Everything else actually needs some material too, so I'm gonna give it a second material and assign it to that. Perfect. And then this is gonna be just kind of a shiny, glossy, kind of make this like a silver type deal. So add another glossy, add another mix node right there, drop it in. Very cool. I think I might just leave that without the Fresnel because I want it to be very glossy. Either that or you drop the Fresnel in, but bring it down quite a bit. Let me see. Well, no, I'm just going to go without a Fresnel for now because we don't really need to be crazy about the details here. Let's see what that's kind of looking like rendered. I think it's looking okay. I kind of want to tweak now the HDR. So we get the light coming in there a little bit and we can kind of tell if we have the materials set up the way we want. So to tweak the HDR, I think my voice cracked when I said that. Okay, so to tweak the HDR, that's better. Let's add in a input, texture coordinate, and then a vector mapping. Drop it in right there. It's going to be generated and generated, or connect the vectors. I got hung up on the generated part. All right, so I'm going to go to a different layer, so it just renders immediately fast here. And kind of, well, I guess I kind of need to stay here. But I want the shadows to not be so steep, so the light's getting in there a little bit more. And I kind of want this to be shadowed across on an angle here as well. So I'm just going to rotate along the Z until we really have that lighting angle. I mean, this also is totally up to you and how you want your scene to be lit. I did it from different lighting angles, and I liked both the ways they looked. But also what I need to do is kind of bring the sun, well, let me see here. Can I get the angles that I want at this lighting angle? Kind of. Right around there is what I'm looking for. You can also change some of the other parameters, but if I can get it close enough with just this, that will be fine. Let me see here. 45 is pretty much where I'm going for, and then maybe just change the location along the Z a little bit. Well, that adds a lot of light. Maybe just a little bit of that 0.05. Raising it up just a little bit. 0.04. You can see the light kind of shooting across there now. 0.03. And that looks pretty decent. Okay, so there's our lighting angle. And then what I like to do, if I'm not going to render the HDR, is just go transparent. So we have our house against the background. And if I turn on our table there, you can see that it's looking pretty good. All right, so I'm just gonna give this a render because I'm feeling like it's not bad. We could obviously add more details, but I feel like a render is in order. So what I'm gonna do is, one thing, this is shining up on the ceiling more than I'd like. It's kind of distracting. I'm just going to add a face on the top of that cone so it doesn't shoot up. And then I'm going to reduce the amount of this down to about 50. Okay, giving it kind of that nicer warm hue. Awesome. I'm just going to save our project file. Let's set up a few render settings real quick over here in the performance. Let's make it 32 by 32. A little better for CPU. Let's give ourselves a render sampling of, well, 128 is decent, but we can go a little more than that. We can go 400. Without a hitch. Alright, save it and render it. And here we have our scene coming together. So this is my favorite part of the tutorial, guys, where you watch everything come to life. Now, this is where you get to sit back, kick your feet up, and pat yourself in the back because you did an awesome job, and things are looking very, very cool. So this is our modern house without the environment. Again, like I said, if you want the environment, there's tutorials on how to create the trees and how to create the nature, so you could easily do that yourself. But I feel like you guys get the idea of how to create your own modern house. Now I'll throw a quick color grade over this just so it looks a little bit fancier. So I'm just going to drop in a converter color ramp. I'm sorry, color balance. That's better. Control Shift brings up your viewer node there. And it's just cool to kind of give the shadows a greener, bluer look like we have here. And the highlights a little bit more of that yellow look and making them a little bit brighter as well. So that right there looks pretty good. Maybe giving the mids a slightly blue hue as well. And punching this into the reds a little bit more. Or actually, maybe kind of giving this the reds and this the blues a little bit. Just depending if you want the inside to look a little bit more blue or not. Which is going to be up to you. I'm going to go slightly that ways. Alright. Somewhere around there looks good. You can spend as much time as you want tweaking those color perimeters. And then maybe make the blacks. Well, I don't really want to crush the shadows anymore. But there you have it. So let me see if this can't be a little bit. Oh yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, slightly purpley reddish. Contrasts nicely to the green here. Alright. Alright. So guys, there is our modern house. It could use an environment like I did in mine. But that is a wrap on that tutorial series, guys. I know I didn't cover everything completely, but like I said, there's a lot to cover in a scene like this, so I had to just decide what was added and decide what wasn't. I hope you guys had fun creating your exterior, your interior, your materials, and finishing it up with a render. By far my favorite part, by the way. So that's going to do it for me, guys, though. If you want to add in the environment, the realistic nature pack is there, as well as the tutorials. Same goes for the trees in the background. The tree asset pack is there, but there's also the tutorials if you want to do it yourself. I'm signing off now. My throat is officially sore after all these tutorials. I hope you guys had fun following along, though. I enjoyed them quite a bit. And if you finished your render, well, drop it down in the comments there so people can see it and be amazed. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll see you in my next tutorial series, and keep on blending. Bye-bye.